Kon Knueppel is about to win the Rookie of the Year. But here's the thing, not only do people not seem to care, they don't even agree. Because despite Kon being the youngest player ever to hit over 250 threes in a season and turning his team from the laughingstock of the NBA into a matchup nobody wants, all anyone in the media and on social media is talking about is
Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg.
So how does a college number 2 option who barely averaged 14 points suddenly become this elite in the NBA? And why is he being so overlooked? Well, to understand that, we have to go back to the mid-2000s in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Kon Knueppel II, born to mother Charlotte and father Kon, grew up thanks to both of his parents playing collegiate level basketball and his uncle, Jeff Nordgaard, representing their hometown Milwaukee Bucks for 13 games, surrounded by basketball. However, initially, Kon didn't love hoops like his parents.
I didn't really like basketball early on.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess second, third grade is still pretty early in my opinion, but falling in love with the players through video games, through books, that type of stuff was important for developing that love of the game and what makes great players great.
But as Kon too began to slowly develop an interest in basketball, his parents were right there with a very unique mindset.
They wanted me to play as well, but it's not necessarily about, like being good at hoops or whatever. It's just the lessons you learn from playing basketball that carry over into life. How to work together with other people, how to work hard, how to handle adversity. All those things were important to them, and those are things they wanted me to learn from hoops.
Yet it was ultimately this environment.
I grew up in a competitive house. Playing pickup games, not just with your brothers, but with your parents, is pretty sweet.
Which resulted in collegiate offers flooding the Knueppel mailbox.
I got offered by Marquette, and when they offered me and called me, I was like, man, I got to get a whole lot better, because I didn't think I was good enough for that level yet.
A wave of letters, which made K2 realize that perhaps he did actually want to take the game that one step further than his parents.
It was instilled in me, kind of in my parents. They wanted me to play, but as I got older, I really just, if you're going to play, you might as well be good at it. So try and work really hard and get as good as I can be.
So, after winning a Wisconsin State Championship in his senior year, Kon decided to make a massive move.
So often, Kon 1 and I would look at each other, we're like, our kid plays for Duke. Like, it was mind-blowing. And there comes Connie from warming up, and he takes off his warm-up because he's going to start. Like I think of that, and that's just chills.
And it was on March 14th, 2025, in which Knueppel's life would take an insane turn.
Outside, Mustaf got a really good look, won't drop in for him. Cooper Flagg went down grabbing at his left ankle area.
Cooper Flagg, the consensus #1 pick in the upcoming 2025 NBA draft, and the Duke Blue Devil superstar after this scary ankle injury, was ruled out for the remaining half against Georgia Tech.
We're all scared because Malik goes out and Cooper goes down.
Meaning Duke's hopes rested in one man's hands, Kon Knueppel. So, through the game's final 20-minute period, the Wisconsin native showcased his elite shooting talent from range, great footwork in and around the hoop to find openings, as well as a calmness late with these clutch free throws. A crucial second half from Kon, 22 points in just 20 minutes, which saw his Blue Devil side advancing into the ACC tournament semifinals. However, with Flagg ruled out versus rival the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels quickly became the favorite to be heading into the championship game. Yet, Duke's now first option wasn't interested in letting that happen.
Knueppel banging with Jackson and bangs it in.
Thanks to Knueppel's 17 points and yet again crucial late free throws, Duke had thwarted UNC's insane comeback rally and was now set to lock horns with the Louisville Cardinals in the ACC final. But yet again, with Cooper still sitting to ensure his full health for their upcoming national championship run, as the ball was tipped up in this conference final, Louisville was the clear favorite.
Louisville is Duke's first ranked opponent since December 4th. when they face number 2 Auburn.
Yet, for the third straight matchup, the player many viewed simply as Flagg's Robin stepped up in incredible fashion, scoring 18 points on an efficient 50% from the field, which not only resulted in his Blue Devils being crowned kings of the ACC, but something even crazier happening, because today's video sponsor, Brevo, wants to help you and your business grow through building smarter relationships with your customers. Brevo combines email marketing, SMS, chats, CRM, and automations all into one platform with simple pay-as-you-grow pricing based on email volume, not the size of your contact list. By the way, if you already have an existing list, you can easily import a CSV file into Brevo or integrate another system. And if you don't, you can create a form within Brevo to help grow your lead base. For example, let's say I want to let my customers know about an upcoming 3x3 basketball tournament. I would use Brevo's template system to help load in my personal branding, which Brevo saves so it remains consistent across all future emails, and after including all the imported information, I can double check how everything looks on all devices, then use Brevo's Aura AI to tailor the email's arrival specific to each member of my contact list for when they are most likely to open. So if you're looking to grow your business or just simplify your marketing, you can get 50% off Brevo's starter and standard plans for your first 3 months by using my code BOUNDS50 or by visiting the link in the description of this video. Thank you to Brevo for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. Because due to Knueppel's elite play in the absence of his roommate, Kon's name was rapidly rising on NBA draft boards, now sitting comfortably in the 3 to 7 range. But with Cooper's confirmed return for March Madness, Knueppel was again forced to slide back into a traditional secondary role. However, unlike most high NBA lottery picks, Kon didn't care.
Like something I learned big time here at Duke this year. It was my first time not being the best player on a team. You know, I probably could have went to another college and been the best player. But just learning how to like affect the game.
Yeah.
When the ball is not in your hands, or when you're not the number one guy, and learning about myself that I can still be an effective player.
All K2 was focused on was winning. Yet, despite a 15-point, 55% from 3, 4 rebound and 3 assist average, as Duke battled their way through the March Madness tournament, tragedy would strike the Blue Devils. You see, despite holding a 14-point advantage just 8 minutes away from the national championship game, Duke began to crumble under the pressure placed upon them from rival the Houston Cougars. Because thanks to a shocking final 33 seconds, in which Houston poured in a Tracy McGrady-like performance, scoring 9 points in this measly stretch of time, the Blue Devils were unfortunately sent packing just short of their title hopes, devastating Kon Knueppel.
Obviously, it didn't go how I wanted it to. To be completely honest, it's probably something I'll never forget the feeling of. And
Motivates you?
Yeah, it does.
But as the 2025 draft was fast approaching, Knueppel had no choice but to reset his focus on the next level of the game, as his name was now being linked with teams as high as the 4th pick.
I personally think you make a ton of sense for Charlotte. And I would be surprised if, just for what they need, if they're going to keep their nucleus together. I could just see you on that team.
However, was a number 2 option, even with Kon's all-around game, actually worth choosing that high? And even if he was, could Knueppel really translate his high school and collegiate success into the NBA? Because scouts had some serious doubts about the Duke star ability to keep up athletically in the league.
My concern is on the defensive end. Now, he was better than expected this season at Duke, but he wasn't guarding NBA level 2 guards.
And that's the question mark for him, is how well is he going to be able to guard his position? And if not very, then he's going to get targeted over and over again.
With the 4th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Kon Knueppel from Duke University.
The Charlotte Hornets, a franchise who had been rebuilding sorta ever since they entered the NBA in 1989, was hoping that this pick would be their final of this rebuild, as Kon was being added to an already solid core of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Miles Bridges. So the addition of an efficient floor spacer seemed like this was a perfect pick.
I think just a guy that's going to come in and work super hard, get better. And you're going to see that on a nightly basis. Loose balls, that I think, from Duke, I'm getting on the floor. But just, I'm going to grow in areas of my game. I want to be better, and it's going to happen. So.
Yet, as Knueppel stepped onto the NBA Summer League court for the first time versus the Los Angeles Lakers and ultimately struggled, shooting just 1 of 8 from the field whilst producing a measly 5 points, doubts that not only his defensive game but offensive skill set could actually translate only grew louder. However, as usual, Kon remained level-headed.
Gotta love the fans, they care so much, and I've been in that position where it's like, oh man, this guy's awesome because of one summer league game. So just having that as a fan, like knowing, like I love basketball and I loved watching summer league growing up, and I would have those same thoughts. It kind of helps you as a player because those things don't really matter.
And after sitting out their second battle to rest an ankle injury, Knueppel was ready to respond to these doubters in the Hornets' third Summer League game versus the Dallas Mavericks. But could he really get it done?
Maybe things just don't close. Oh, wow, he shot that?
Knueppel.
Holy jump.
Desperate to shut everyone up, not only would Kon score 18 points against the Mavericks on 50% shooting, but added 19 against the San Antonio Spurs and then 17 versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, incredibly propelling his Hornets Summer League side into the championship game against the Sacramento Kings, a battle in which Knueppel simply refused to take his foot off the gas, pouring in 17 points before doing this.
Simpson around the screen, fires to Knueppel, 3 on the way, it's gone!
And then icing the cake at the line, seeing his Hornets Summer League side crowned kings of this preseason tournament. Yet, that's not all.
The NBA 2K26 Summer League Championship Game MVP trophy to Kon Knueppel. Congratulations to Kon.
However, once again, doubt that the now Summer League MVP could translate this domination into the real NBA game existed. And to make matters even worse, Kon was about to face another issue that he had never battled before, one that would make his transition into the league that much more difficult. October 22nd, 2025.
Yeah, I got a rebound and just kind of beat my guy down the floor, and Cole had a really good, kind of seal down low there, and just kind of scooped it in. That was pretty cool to get it over with right away.
After scoring his first ever basket on the highest stage of basketball, Knueppel only continued to impress Hornet fans by scoring his next 3 buckets all without missing, a crucial 11-point and 5-rebound contribution in Charlotte's first victory of the season. However, after being benched in their following matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers, as Kon checked in off the pine, potentially for the first time since he was a child, K2 was desperate to show his head coach, Charles Lee, how big the mistake he had just made was. Therefore, as this battle progressed, Knueppel set out to prove that he should be the starting guard next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, which, thanks to his 14-point night on 50% from 3, is exactly what he had done. As against the Washington Wizards in their following game, Kon would return to a starting role and simply continue to showcase just how deserving he was of a starting guard role in the NBA despite being a rookie. Knueppel's 20-point night produced on an incredible 5 of 9 from 3, which the Wisconsin native backed up by pouring in 19 on the Miami Heat, had not only broken the record for the most threes scored by anyone in NBA history in their first 4 games, but shown the league a flash of how good Kon Knueppel could be. Yet, while Kon was seemingly panning out exactly how the Hornets hoped he would, with his subsequent struggles against the Orlando Magic and then the Minnesota Timberwolves, in which he produced a total of just 10 points against both squads, combined with Charlotte beginning their season 2 and 4, more losses than Kon had recorded since he was a junior in high school. Knueppel was facing a brand new struggle. However, what was about to happen in his first ever battle against the Utah Jazz would truly change everything. Upon reflection, before the ball was tossed in Salt Lake City,
over the past 2 games, I felt like I was a little 3 happy. Wanted to get back to, getting downhill, creating the paint when I don't have that 3.
Knueppel understood exactly what was required of him heading into this crucial night.
Kon Knueppel, great first half for the rookie.
a mindset shift, which initially saw Kon set a new career high of 24 points versus the Jazz before ultimately eclipsing it quite literally in their next game against the Miami Heat, in which the ex-Blue Devil would score his first 30 ball in the league. But Knueppel's refocusing, while it helped his own stat line, failed to assist the Hornets in adding any more victories to their win column. So, as usual, Kon didn't look outward to blame anyone for yet another loss. No.
You know, I thought I left a lot out there. You know, I missed some easy looks. So not as efficient as I wanted to be tonight. But
however, with Charlotte's continued failures, K2 was only growing more frustrated with his squad's lack of success. Because there really is only one thing that the Wisconsin native cares about.
Curious, what was the first thing you bought with your new monies?
I got a nice apartment, and I got a Ford Explorer, black Ford Explorer.
You know how to do it?
Nope.
This has to be facing you.
Okay. Yeah, this so you can tell the time.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Hermes. This is real nice.
Yeah, Connie, it's a Hermes.
I don't know what that is.
Winning. Therefore, the Hornets rookie, in just his 12th game in the NBA and playing in front of friends and family, ripped the reins out of whoever else thought that they would be guiding Charlotte's ship in this game.
Kon turns the corner! Yes!
And began to truly take over.
Oh yes! The rookie!
Incredibly totaling 29 points as the clock approached triple zeros. However, with 27 seconds remaining and down 3, Charlotte required a miracle if they were to leave this game with just their 5th W of the season.
Right to Knueppel! Tie ball game!
But despite the hometown kid gifting his squad an extra 5 minutes, the Milwaukee Bucks, thanks to outscoring their rivals 18-5 in overtime, would tragically hand the Hornets their 8th loss of the 2025-2026 season, something that destroyed Knueppel.
Everybody needs that inner voice a little bit that's saying you're not good enough, so you keep getting better.
Yet, not everything was bad. Charlotte was clearly building the chemistry required for success, with their team bus loaded full of all their players rolling up to Knueppel's home post-game to share a meal.
My buddies or my teammates know that I'm from Milwaukee, so they're like, "Kon, where are we going? Where are we going to eat?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going home."
Yeah, I don't know where you guys are
going. See
going.
my family, and they were like, "Well, I guess we're going to Kon's house." And my parents were like, "Yeah, invite anybody over." And I was like, "I think I'm gonna invite the whole team over." Where are we going? So mom was ready, 25 pounds of chicken fajitas.
And what would happen over their next 6 games was truly shocking. As thanks to Kon averaging 16 points on 51% from the field, 44% from 3, and just under 90% from the line, plus tying the rookie record for the most made threes in a single game versus the Atlanta Hawks.
Ball finds Kon! Score it! And a foul!
In which the 20-year-old added 7 of them, Knueppel's name began being floated in the Rookie of the Year chats.
First player in NBA history with 150 plus points and 30 plus threes in the first 10 games in NBA history. Fastest player to ever reach 30 made threes. What? And only rookie of the season to have 3 straight 20-ball games. This kid is a robot.
However, outside of the Hornets rookie's epic play, not much else was going well for Charlotte, because right after Kon's epic night versus Atlanta in their battle with the New York Knicks, North Carolina's NBA franchise had been handed their 7th loss in a row, placing their record now at a horrific 4-14. So could Kon actually contribute to winning, or were the Charlotte Hornets destined to forever be a struggling NBA franchise? November 29th, 2025, facing off against the scorching hot Toronto Raptors, who entered this night having won 9 games in a row, were now just 12.6 seconds away from bringing that streak to 10 until... An incredibly clutch shot, which this time around was backed up by an improved overtime performance and a Charlotte Hornets victory that began to showcase the full potential of this Hornets roster now that most of their squad was healthy.
What does it say about the potential of this group now that you guys are getting closer to whole, about what you guys can do going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can compete on any night with any team. I think we did that for the most part. in some of our other games even without our guys. That just speaks to the competitiveness of the group, but it's good to have everybody back, and we look forward to having JG and Grant back as well.
However, earning their 6th W of the season wasn't the only positive to end November for Kon Knueppel, as the 4th pick was dubbed the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month, something that Kon, of course, didn't care about.
Great thing about Kon too is even when I told him that he was going to be winning this award shortly before he did, he was like unfazed. Obviously appreciative and grateful, but he's kind of like, okay, I just want to keep moving forward. I want to keep trying to figure out how to win games. Like, it's not about just Kon. He's got this humble confidence to him.
But despite his own disinterest in the award, Knueppel's talent was clear, and even former NBA players were starting to take notice.
Bro, he gonna be nice for a long time, bro.
For sure.
He got that Austin Reeves kind of game.
Yeah, but it's a little. Take better shots.
Yeah.
Yet, it was on December 12th, 2025, in which the Wisconsin native would showcase another elite part of his game, a skill that not many realize he possesses.
Kon with a rebound. Slides past Gay and finishes with 2 hands for the final shot of the 3rd quarter. Kon didn't panic at all.
However, it wasn't this brand new career high night of 33 points which was the most shocking part. That belonged to something else, because Knueppel had impressively thrown 9 dimes throughout this battle, highlighting that as his gravity grows throughout his career, much like a player he has been compared to, Klay Thompson, that Kon could potentially be an elite playmaker. But despite all of this, the Charlotte Hornets were once again unable to push themselves into the win column, seeing them going 1-4 over their last 5, and the Hornets' loss total ballooning to 18. A depressing reality for everyone involved, and something that seemingly had no horizon. You see, the Charlotte Hornets, despite nailing multiple lottery picks over the years, had struggled to ever build a winning franchise, making moves such as trading away both Finals MVP and champion Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Pistons' elite big man Jalen Duren on draft night, and since 2016, the squad had never made the postseason, they hadn't won a playoff series since 2002, and had never been to the Eastern Conference Finals ever. So, desperate to get back to winning ways, Kon Knueppel was ready to showcase to the rest of the NBA just how truly elite he could actually be. December 14th, 2025, facing off against the Cleveland Cavaliers and hungry to finally start winning games, Kon highlighted yet another skill he had developed in college.
Like, if you're going off 1, the defender can kind of knows where you're going. When you get to 1 off 2, you can like pivot this way, you can shot fake, spin back, you can use either foot to pivot. So they're still kind of guessing.
Something that allowed the Hornets rookie to not only score 29 points, but thanks to his teammate Brandon Miller sending this game into overtime, and Charlotte yet again outscoring their rival throughout this extra period, that finally saw the Hornets returning to the win column. An impressive feat that the franchise, thanks to an elite mindset which every player on their roster held.
Just sharing it. I think we made a lot of extra passes, passing up good shots or great shots, and that leads to a higher percentage.
Open in the corner. Knueppel. Second straight 3 for Kon.
Which resulted in them firstly tying the NBA record for most 3s with 18 makes in their next battle against the Atlanta Hawks.
Knueppel. Yes! Oh, yes! Oh, that's how you do it!
And secondly, winning once again thanks to recording 39 assists on 49 buckets. However, this success was tragically short-lived, as over the franchise's next 7 battles, Charlotte was only successful in 3, meaning their record sat at a poor 12-23. A devastating fact that, as they prepared to face off against the defending NBA champions, the 30-6 Oklahoma City Thunder, that seemed to be getting worse. Or was it? January 5th, 2026.
Knueppel off of a screen, drills another one from deep. Knueppel, oh, that's a tough drive and finish with the left hand.
thanks to the 2025 4th pick adding in a crucial 23 points on 62% shooting. The buzz, sorry, I'm not going to make a Hornets post joke again, was returning for Charlotte.
We just got a spirit about us right now, and that, it kind of starts when you go on the road and beat OKC, the best team in the league. Gives you some confidence, and we're a good basketball team, and so we're starting to really believe that about ourselves and coming out and hunting every night, and we're getting hot, and I think we're going to stay hot.
You see, over the Hornets' next 13 games, thanks to their rookies' 16.2 point, 6.3 rebound, and 3.9 assist averages on near 50, 40, 90 shooting, the squad would finally win more games than they had lost, recording 8 wins whilst losing just 5, placing their total record at 20-28. However, the real insanity began as Kon Knueppel stepped foot onto the American Airlines Center court to face off against former roommate and the 2025 #1 pick, Cooper Flagg.
Knueppel's already made a pair. He's got 3! Oh my goodness, the con man! Kon, good look. Got it! Up diddly deep! PJ's body looks really lean too. Are you kidding me? Kon Knueppel, have a night!
Because while Kon was truly dominant against his former Blue Devil running mate, pouring in 32 points, Flagg, who was quickly becoming the focal point for his struggling Dallas side, was also doing some insane things, such as tying this battle with this clutch pull-up 3. To make matters worse for the rising Hornets, with forward Miles Bridges failing to put his squad ahead in the following possession, and Dallas preparing for yet another offensive attempt in which they could take the lead, another Charlotte loss seemed almost inevitable until...
Oh, tipped! Hornets have it! Put it in there, Kon! He got crushed! Yes! He's gonna go to the free throw line!
Kon, any doubt you're going to make those 2 free throws at the end?
No.
But despite Kon Knueppel saving his Hornet franchise and producing yet another career high of 34 points, all the talk after the game was about one person and one person only.
Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg. Cooper was so great.
Yet, with Kon's sole focus belonging to his franchise's win column, he chose to block out all the noise regarding any award race and locked in on the things he could control in order to find further success in the NBA.
Yeah, I think we come into every game as the hunters. I think that's kind of flipped from the beginning of the season. We were building good habits, but now we come in expecting to win games. And I think that's what you need to be successful in this league, because it's really hard to win. Yeah, I just think we're playing really good ball right now, playing together offensively. And then I think our effort defensively right now is at a high level.
A fact that resulted in the Hornets heading into their battle against the Eastern Conference's #1 seed, the Detroit Pistons, which saw them holding an epic 9-game winning streak, now just 3 Ws away from being at 500. However, as Kon Knueppel was trying to make that 2, a massive brawl broke out, seeing multiple Charlotte players ejected and eventually suspended, resulting in his franchise heading into the All-Star break still below 500. A devastating truth that as Kon Knueppel returned from representing the squad who chose him 4th at the Rising Stars game, that only continued. Because even with Kon Knueppel adding in 7 threes once again and totaling 33 points versus the Cavaliers, Charlotte had lost both games since the league resumed and were now 5 games below 500, far away from their postseason dreams. So, many began to wonder, even with an elite core of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Miles Bridges, plus the addition of their rising talent in Kon and defensive-focused big Moussa Diabate, could this squad actually make it into the postseason? Or did they truly need a few more years to develop before that goal could finally be achieved? February 22nd, 2026. Facing off against the Washington Wizards, Kon, who had lost just 3 games over 2 seasons before arriving to the NBA, and now with nearly 60 games at the highest level under his belt, was only continuing to showcase how efficient he really was. As, thanks to the Wisconsin native adding in 28 on 56% shooting against the Wizards, and then breaking the franchise's road win streak against the Chicago Bulls thanks to a 21 31-point night, things were seemingly heading back in the right direction. But it was ultimately on the 26th of February against the Indiana Pacers in which everything truly began to take a positive turn.
Knueppel had 5 threes in the first half and make it 6.
Because with this made three, Kon Knueppel had broken the all-time rookie record for made threes in a season, while simultaneously smashing the single-game rookie record for made threes with 8 throughout their victory against Indiana. To make things even better for the former Blue Devil, not only was he named as the Rookie of the Month yet again in February, but thanks to a 20-point contribution from their 2025 pick against the Boston Celtics, the Charlotte Hornets were incredibly, after one of the league's worst starts, now above 500 at 32-31, an insane fact that saw the Rookie of the Year race only heating up more.
He's averaging 20 points a game. He's breaking, like he already broke the rookie record for threes. He's on pace for 250, 275 as a rookie. He's elevated and brought stability to an organization. Now you can't like hold injuries against Cooper, but also I can't count that against Kon Knueppel. The stability that he's brought to that team, the shooting, he looks like a young Klay Thompson.
Because after dropping 27 on the Heat on 64% from the field and then pouring in 24 on 7 of 13 shooting against the Kings.
Because Cooper Flagg is good, but he's not like this. He's not efficient like this.
So Kon Knueppel got to get Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, if you put Kon Knueppel on Dallas, he'll still be good. Obviously, Cooper Flagg will still be good with the Hornets, but I don't think they'd be winning like that.
Some were beginning to compare it to that of the 2004 Rookie of the Year race between Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James. A battle that, despite Melo's Nuggets side making the postseason and the pair averaging almost identical stats, that LeBron James, the #1 pick, won, even though many fans felt Anthony should have been victorious. Or others sharing that Flagg and Knueppel, like Grant Hill and Jason Kidd, or Elton Brand and Steve Francis did, should share the award as co-Rookies of the Year. However, regardless of what anyone thinks, one thing is clear. Even with Kon Knueppel becoming the youngest player to ever record 250 or more made threes, nearly recording his first triple-double against the New York Knicks with 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists in their victory.
There you go. There you go. Nah, you good, bro? Hey, let's get out of here, man. Time to go. He didn't hit the Rookie of the Year with the ball.
Not enough attention is being given towards the potential of Kon Knueppel.
But in terms of Rookie of the Year, I'm a big believer that this is the entertainment business. It is. And Kon Knueppel has provided that entertainment value with production. He's missed one game. That means something to me. Not for nothing, he's going to be the first rookie to ever lead the league in three-pointers made. He's shooting 44% from behind the arc. He's shooting 48% from the field. The guy's close to 90% at the free throw line. And these are all bulk numbers, you know? He's changed the attitude about this team because he understands how to play the game. He has brought breadth and room for everyone on this team to be a better player because of the defensive commitment that he commands. He has been everything for this franchise. And Cooper Flagg is going to be great, and he's a phenomenal player, and he's going to be great for a long time down in Dallas. But for this particular year, it's a no-brainer to me. It's Kon Knueppel.
Love it.
April 12th, 2026. Playing in the final regular season game of the 2025-2026 season, Kon Knueppel was about to do something that nobody in NBA history had ever done before, becoming the first rookie to ever lead the whole league in made threes, scoring 273 over his initial year in the NBA, just beating teammate LaMelo Ball, which saw the Hornets achieve something else.
We showed the standings when we were 4-14, and now to finish 44-38, pretty cool. It talks about the resilience of the team and the organization that want to win the games and fight to get better every day. So it's cool, and we earned a chance to host a playing game here.
Yet, despite Kon's insane rookie year, his former roommate's initial season, especially how he rounded it out, becoming the first teenager to score 50 or more points in the NBA, has seemingly seen him being tipped to earn the Rookie of the Year award. So what do you think? And even if you're watching this after the award winner is announced, let me know below if you believe they got it wrong. Speaking of Cooper Flagg, did you know on top of becoming the first teenager to score 50 or more points, he's also the first rookie since Michael Jordan to score 45 or more twice in their first season in the NBA. To find out more about why Flagg is so dominant so early into his career and the other insane records he's smashed as a teenager, click the video on your screen right now.